historically that Ahaz was a godless king and that he had a plan. I know how I'm going to fend off this invasion. I'm going to hire out the king of Assyria. The king of Assyria is a pagan king. He's an enemy. I'm going to hire out the king of Assyria, and I'm going to use his forces to fight these guys. That's what he's thinking. So Isaiah comes, verse 4, with the word from the Lord, be careful, keep calm, don't be afraid, do not lose heart because of these two smoldering stubs of firewood, because of the fierce anger of Ritzin and Aram and of the son of Remaliah. Won't even call him by his first name. Won't even call him Pekach, just the son of Remaliah. It's clearly speaking of him in low terms. Aram, Ephraim, and Remaliah's son have plotted your ruin, saying, let us invade Judah, let us tear it apart and divide it among ourselves, and make the son of Tabael king over it. We don't know anything about who the son of Tabael is. All we know is they wanted to replace the Davidic king. The one thing that we do see here is that God speaks to the house of David in this passage, as we'll see in a little while. And that part of the plan from the Israelites and the Arameans was to get rid of Ahaz and put their own guy on the throne. Therefore, this is a direct threat to the Davidic dynasty. That much we can understand. Yet this is what the sovereign Lord says. It will not take place. It will not happen, for the head of Aram is Damascus. The head of Damascus is only Ritzin. Within 65 years, Ephraim will be too shattered to be a people. The head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is only Remaliah's son. If you do not stand firm in your faith, you will not stand at all. That last verse, there's a little play on words in the Hebrew. Imlo taminu ki lo te'amenu. Reverse that, sorry. If you do not stand firm in your faith, you'll not stand at all. So God's telling us it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And these guys themselves are going to be cut down pretty soon. Again, the Lord spoke to Ahaz, ask the Lord your God for a sign, whether in the deepest depths or in the highest heights. But Ahaz said, I will not ask. I will not put the Lord to the test. I'm too deeply spiritual to do that. No, you won't do it because you don't want God's help, because you got plans to lean on the king of Assyria, and you're faithless. God's trying to challenge him to have faith, and he won't have faith. Now, what I've read so far, I think Jewish Christian interpreters agree with basically what's been said thus far. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, I will not put the Lord to the test. Then Isaiah said, hear now, you house of David. And this is now in the plural, interestingly. So it's addressing Ahaz and the Davidic dynasty, the royal household. Hear now, you house of David. So he is representing the house of David here. It's in the plural. Is it not enough to try the patience of men? Will you try the patience of my God also? So this is now coming with some degree of anger, it seems, as well. Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Again, in the plural. The Alma, we won't translate it. The Alma will be with child and will give birth to a son. Or the Alma is pregnant and about to give birth to a son, and will call him Emmanuel. By the way, the Dead Sea Scrolls read, he will call, which is another way of saying they will call. So when Matthew quotes it as they, and the Masoretic tradition, Masoretic textual tradition says she, he's not necessarily changing anything. There are different readings. The Alma will be with child and give birth to a son, or she is pregnant and about to give birth to a son, and will call him Emmanuel, Emmanuel. He will eat curds and honey when he knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right. But before the boy knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, the land of the two kings you dread will be laid waste. The Lord will bring on you and on your people and on the house of your father a time unlike any since Ephraim broke away from Judah. He will bring the king of Assyria. In other words, the very guy you want to rely on for help, God's going to send to bring judgment on you. And then it goes on with the judgment passage. Now, the 8th chapter, the Lord said to me, take a large scroll and write on it with an ordinary pen, Maher Shalal Chashbaz. It's a nice name. Quick to plunder, swift to spoil. And I will call in Uriah the priest and Zechariah son of Yeberechiah as reliable witnesses for me. Then I went to the prophetess, his wife obviously, and she conceived and gave birth to a son. And the Lord said to me, name him Maher Shalal Chashbaz. Before the boy knows how to say, my father and my mother, the wealth of Damascus and the plunder of Samaria will be carried off by the king of Assyria. Now, the interesting thing here is that this prophecy in chapter 8 almost seems to have the same function as the prophecy in chapter 7 in terms of setting a time. Within this time frame, these other kings will be defeated. Interesting. So what's the meaning then of Isaiah 7:14? Does it have a meaning in context? Absolutely. Did it refer to something that had to have relevance in the days of Ahaz? Surely, in context, no question about it. What exactly was the sign? Oh, I've got it. I've got it. All right. Ask for any sign. Biggest sign you want. And the heavens, however big you want, ask. I won't do. Okay. I'm going to give you a sign myself. A lady's going to have a boy. It's going to be a boy. Is that the sign? That God predicted that a lady's going to have a boy? It doesn't quite seem to live up to the potential and scope. Could it simply be that the sign is that before the child reaches a certain age, that destruction will come on these other kings? Well, this prophecy here in the 8th chapter and this birth here does that very thing. What's the nature of the sign? Now, this is a subject that I got interested in when I was challenged on it years ago. I've got a big library, so I've got a massive amount of commentaries on the book of Isaiah. Then I've got all of the rabbinic commentaries, the classical commentaries on it, and then I've got all these articles and books written. I could just pile them up and stack them up here. And you know what's remarkable? There's very little agreement among scholars as to what the sign actually was. You say, well, what if it was a sign of a virgin birth? And that was the sign. The sign was the virgin birth. Well, it would be argued that that's not a sign that you could see. How could you really know it's a sign? And then you could argue, well, according to Jewish law, there was a test of a woman's virginity. If she was married and the husband said, oh, she wasn't a virgin, and you could have a test and the bridal cloth and the whole bit. And so theoretically it could be proven, or it's debated back and forth. According to Martin Buber, this is the most controversial passage in the Bible. In my own view, this is an obscure, difficult prophecy in terms of understanding exactly what it meant in context. And if you don't believe me, just take 10 different commentaries, Jewish, Christian, liberal, conservative, and just read what they all say, and you'll see the level of disagreement. You say, yeah, but certainly God made it totally clear that this is a virgin giving birth. No, it's not totally clear. In point of fact, there is not one word in Hebrew that in and of itself means virgin. In ancient Hebrew, biblical Hebrew. In other words, if you want to make absolutely clear that you are speaking of a virgin, you would refer to someone, for example, who was a Betula, or it could be an Alma, who never knew a man. You have to use an explanation, or the context has to absolutely clearly point to the fact that it's speaking of a virgin. In other words, a legal section about virginity and rape and things like that. Otherwise, the Hebrew word alma does not mean young woman. It would be maiden. The idea of an alma married with children would be a very unlikely figure. It speaks of youthfulness, okay? It could be pointing